one of my biggest frustrations is when recruiters would come to me and says, Casey, I got the perfect candidate for you. 90% of the people that you hire are for technical fit, but 90% of the people you let go are for team fit. It's important that we win people. Like whether we win a deal or we lose a deal, we have to win people. Like I don't want to try to convince anybody to buy from me. I want them to convince themselves that they should buy from me.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, where we explore insights and trends shaping the global recruiting and staffing industry. Want to build talented teams that drive your company toward big goals and big growth? Then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters, brought to you by HireQuest. Connect with us at hirequest.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vince Holt, and I'm the host of Talent Hunters. Today, it is my pleasure to have Casey Jacox, author of the book, Win Relationships, Not the Deal. Love this. Casey is a keynote speaker as well as a coach focused on developing sales skills to grow revenue through building relationships. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you, Vince. I'm honored to be here and look forward to having a great conversation that hopefully impacts your audience.
Well, this is going to be fun. We've not had a podcast with somebody in my neck of the woods, so this is really a pleasure. So your career journey took you from being a quarterback at Central Washington University.
That's right.
To becoming a sales leader. And how did your athletic background shape your approach to leadership in sales?
Can I tell a story?
Please.
So through and we're real quick, when you said neck of the woods, everybody, I know where Vince lives. It's a place, beautiful Tri-Cities. I've been there. My mom lives there. Shout out to my mom if she's listening. So it all started. So I know I'm not supposed to say this because it's in HR, but I'm saying anyways, I'm 49 years old. At age 17, I had an injury where I broke my foot in 4 spots that dramatically impacted my mindset and really taught me the power of curiosity, humility, and vulnerability, which are 3 skills I teach now. There are 3 skills I think many people leave dormant, but when you unlock them, it just changes culture. So I was our starting quarterback my junior year in high school. Long story short, to get there, I worked my tail off, squeezed every ounce of athletic ability, was goal setting, visualization. I mean, I was getting up early to lift weights, after school to lift weights. I mean, I did everything I could. Finally get the starting job, kind of like people were shocked because I beat out this other kid who was a better athlete than me. Or senior year, I go into my senior year now, and I went to a couple of camps. I went to the Central Camp, University of Washington, and now I'm getting recruited by UW. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. Well, the last play of the Jamboree in my senior season, which is like everybody know what Jamboree is. It's like a mini game before the real season starts. We had done really, really well against a few other schools. Well, I get put back in the last play of the Jamboree. Pass play was called. Why, I'm not sure, but it was fate or serendipity. A guy, the nose guard, kind of shoots the gap. Gets on top of my foot. I'm stuck. And now a guy from the back, the end comes around, and blasts me from back, and it felt like the tongue of my shoe flew off. I would break my foot in 4 spots. Done senior season. The guy that I beat out my junior year, he was playing tight end for us that senior season. He now would get put in to play quarterback. World moves on. So now, as I'm feeling sorry for myself, week 1, week 2, and deep down, Vince, I'm thinking, man, I hope he plays bad. I hope the team loses. I hope, because it's all about me. And I was, it's this selfish 17-year-old kid. They weren't. They were thriving. They were doing great. And I just felt more depressed and struggling. And something inside me at week 3 said, I can't go down like this. And I was a captain, not acting like one. And I went to my coach, Coach Marty Osborne, who's still a friend and mentor to this day. I can't call him Marty. I always call him still Coach Osborne. I said, Coach, I need your help. He's like, what's going on, Case? I said, I'm embarrassed about what I'm telling you. I said, I hope you guys suck. I hope Shane plays bad. I'm just I worked so hard, and why this got taken away from me, I'm just so pissed. He's like, man, I'm so proud of you. I go, did you just hear what I just said? How could you be proud of what I just told you? He goes, because you're asking for help. And we're going to find a role for you. You're a captain of this team. I said, and I still kind of have a bad attitude. I was like what? He goes, Casey, you know this offense better than I do. Why don't you go up in the booth? You be my offense coordinator. You help me call plays. I was like, what? It was almost like a vacuum got sucked out of me. All those negative energy, I had clarity, I had purpose. So that story, why it helps me in sales and business, is because there might be other salespeople having better months. There might be a bad quarter. just because I was on top 1 year, great, get back in the huddle, do it again. So I think sports taught me about adversity, grit, goal setting, visualization, working with a team, realizing it's a quarterback can't throw the ball to himself, just like in staffing. I need a great recruiter. I need a great back office team to take care of the consultants. I need to make sure my accounts receivable team gets that invoice sent on time. And I got to make sure I give them the right information. I need a great coach. I need to make sure my sales leader understands where he or she can go help me at a meeting. So obviously you've fired me up already, Vince, struck a chord. So I hope that story answers your question.
Yeah, it does. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of that, you talked about 3 skills. Build on that. Talk to us a little bit. Educate us on what you mean about those 3 skills. Because, look, this is about sales. I'm in sales. 40 years of recruiting is sales, whether anybody wants to believe that or not. A lot of our audience is going to be recruiters.
Yep.
They're into sales. So expand on, kind of like what you talk about on stage, expand on your 3 skills.
Yeah. So let's start with curiosity. So curiosity is a superpower. Most sellers start a meeting, or most recruiters or account managers, whatever we're going to call them, start the meeting and they start telling them about their agenda. Well, hey, I'm excited to talk to you about our products and this and this. That's common. Everybody does that. What I teach is a question. So if I was meeting you for the first time, I'd say, Vince, great to meet you. Based on doing some research, I prepared some information. But more importantly for today, describe what would be an ideal outcome for you in the time we have today. And that question gets me the answers to the test, everybody, because it doesn't matter what I want to talk about. It matters what the customer wants to talk about. I need to meet them where they are. And selling, in my experience, I'm not saying I'm right, but in my experience, it's about being a curious storyteller. And just like I write about in my book in the very first line, when my son asked me what do I do for a living, I told him I make friends for a living. And that's how I literally slow it down to think about, like, how can I just treat people like the way I want to be treated? So being curious is a superpower. And what separates, I would say, the good, the great, and the elite is elite sellers or elite recruiters or elite leaders ask second and third level questions, meaning they ask a question. They say, tell me more about that. Wow, describe why that would be important to you. Tell me what would happen if we didn't achieve that, if you didn't achieve that goal. Tell me what happened if you didn't get these positions staffed by X date. Tell me who else would be impacted. I mean, I could ask questions for days. And to get good at that, it takes something called practice, everybody, which I know that means role playing, which means, now everybody just got nervous. We have to practice. Sorry, I practice still age 49. I practice every time before I go on stage. I practice before I'm going to go coach somebody. Pilots have to practice. Pro athletes have to practice. People in theater have to practice. But we in staffing sales, we're that elite. We can just wing it. Sorry, you have to practice. The humility, I would say, is just about realizing that you might be a one-man band, but then don't be humble. But if there's more than one person inside your company, find out ways it's not always about you. And if you're a leader that's been in a company for 20 years, or you're a recruiter that's been in a company for 15 years, remember what it was like to be on your first day. And all these experiences you have, they're stories, and stories will help people maybe take their game to another level. But are we slowing down to meet people where they are? Either it's your internal team or your external folks. And before we tell a story I like to be in humility, is don't assume they want to hear it. Say, like, if someone said, like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Well, great. Well, tell me why. And if you have the answer to help them, say, well, tell me, would it be helpful if I shared a story where I went through that? Now they're much more wanting to hear it versus me being the smartest in the room. Hey guys, let me tell you how great I am. And then vulnerability, why it's important is one of my mentors at age 41, he told me a very powerful line. He said, Casey, it's okay not to know every answer. It's just not okay not to do anything about it. And that triggered another thought that my college quarterback coach, a guy named Bo Baldwin, taught me. He said, Casey, if you ever have to tell me how good you are, you're not that good, but when you're great, I'll tell you. So I was like, I like that. And so being vulnerable to ask for help is a strength. Being vulnerable to say, hey, can you look at this email to make sure it reads right? Being vulnerable to say, man, I got this big deal. Do you see any gaps? Is there any things I'm asking? Being vulnerable is to say, like, I mentioned a story in the book when I was a part of Kforce was one of their biggest deal in company history, one of their biggest collapses. I would have got too much credit, probably got too much negative energy. I was the same guy, but I asked for help because, again, as it relates to quarterback, I apologize for the people who aren't always following sports analogies. A quarterback can't hike the ball to himself. A quarterback can't throw the ball to himself. A quarterback doesn't usually play both ways. They don't play defense too. Sometimes maybe small 8-man football they do. But where I only played quarterback. So I think when you're humble to realize there's always another level and you got to thank your team. When you're vulnerable to say, man, lean in on that continuous growth, that continuous improvement. And then be curious. Lean in on your curiosity because there's always questions we did not ask. And I always like to ask when I leave a customer, I always ask them that. I said, tell me, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, is there any question I didn't ask today that would have made our time more impactful for you?
Pretty profound. And I love the sports analogies. And because as you were just talking, I'm thinking about the quarterback and I go back to the longest yard and, arrogance for a quarterback or pointing the finger by a quarterback. Hey, that offensive line is just going to take a step sideways and let you pay the price. So I love that. And humility to me is very profound in sales because I'll be the first person to tell people, you know way more than I do, but I need to be here to solve your problem, to solve your need. And the only way that I can find that out is by asking questions. So I love how you take that to the second and the third level and so forth, because sales isn't about answers. Sales is about questions. It really
Remember
is.
Voltaire?
Yep.
For people who don't know Voltaire, I want to say French philosopher back in the 1500s. And I think he might have been sexist, so I'm going to help him out. But he has a quote that says, a man or woman is not judged by his or her answers, but by his or her questions. So back in that time, they're teaching curiosity. Yeah, we still don't get it. There's a small little guy. He has his theme park called Disney. He says curiosity was the reason he was most successful. Someone like Michelangelo, pretty good little artist. He was curious. Socrates, he was curious. One of my blanking, the female pilot that flew across the
Amelia Earhart.
She was curious.
That's exactly
Curiosity
right.
opens doors. Ted Lasso was curious. So again, yeah, I mean, and it's so opposite. And so if I could go back and start over, I would worry less about memorizing technology and like having to have all that, versus just lean into my authentic and vulnerable self. And I love how you just said it. I'm not a developer. I wish I was, but I'm not. Your job's to be really, really good and smart at code. My job is to give you access to talent that you don't know where exists. That's what I'm good at. So when you said that, you made me think of something we've been talking about with clients this week of mine, and it triggered. So when I was in staffing, one of my biggest frustrations is when recruiters would come to me and says, Casey, I got the perfect candidate for you. And I'm like, really? Well, how do you know they're perfect? Because did you get your software development degree over the weekend? Because I don't have it. So maybe we shouldn't say the word perfect. Well, they're perfect. How do you know? Well, because they match all the requirements. But how do you know? I guess we don't. So maybe we should say it as, hey, we have a great candidate. Her name's Susie. We like a lot of things about her based on what you shared with us. We think she's about 85, 90%. There might be some things we're not quite sure about, which is why I want you to be able to talk about them. But I'm excited to talk to you. She showed up on time, great references, great experience. Tell me how someone like that could positively impact you and your company. Totally different way to say it. But anyway, sorry to go off track.
No, I mean, hey, you're right on track. Trust me. I mean, our audience is going to thrive on this stuff. It's the same thing as hiring isn't about what's on the black and white piece of paper. Hiring is about the chemistry. Because in all my years of recruiting, frankly, I would have to say the majority of the hires that I was a part of was because of the chemistry, not because they had everything that was on the job order list. So I totally go with you.
Well, we found that, I used to say this to my clients, I would say 90% of the people that you hire are for technical fit, but 90% of the people you let go are for team fit.
It's interesting.
Because again, to your point, if they come in, they have a bad attitude, or they come in, oh shoot, I keep forgetting to put on deodorant. Well, no one wants to work with that guy. or, they keep forgetting to turn in their time card, or they're just not being a good teammate. Well, they're going to get let go. They could be the smartest guy or girl in the world, but if they're not a good teammate, probably not a good fit.
You got to be a student of whatever you do.
Yeah, 100%.
Whether it's sports, whether it's business, whatever it is, don't go in thinking that you're the solution. Go in learning to what needs to be solved.
And I think you just made me think of something else. I think that's back to humility. One of the things that drove me to stay humble was all my coaches and my parents. My wife does a great job keeping me humble now. But my executive team, when I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to go to our President's Club trip for many years. And when I'd have to give a speech on stage. And when I would do it, I'd get off stage, and sometimes my CEO or the other executives, I remember them saying to me, he's like, man, you did more this year than you did last year, but yet you're more humble. Doesn't make sense. And when I heard that, Vince, it motivated me. It's like, I never want them to think I've arrived or I'm an a-hole, or I want them to be like, oh, he's just one of us. We just, one of the guys in the locker room. And I think too often, and if there's people listening right now that you are a top performer, you are consistently like, and if I hope this is hitting you in the heart and the brain about like, maybe I can be a little bit more humble, or maybe I can share a story of where I struggled with my team. Maybe I can show my team where I'm challenging myself to get better, because like when your top performers or most like celebrated employees do that, that's how cultures I've found change.
That's a great statement that you alluded to. Never arrive, because once you've arrived, you're declining. I mean, you get comfortable. And the minute you're comfortable in the sales world, okay, the minute you're comfortable, you're losing ground.
Oh, yeah. I always tell people complacency is a silent killer.
Exactly. Well said. Well said. So let's get into your book just a little bit. The title I just gravitate towards, because you're in it for the relationships, not the deal. And gosh only knows, I've been preaching that to people for years and years and years. The deals are going to come. But there's something about relationships that I'm curious your thoughts on. My philosophy is relationships are built on trust, and you got to earn it. Tell me what you mean by your relationships.
Yeah, so I think to build a relationship, I have to find something in common. And then when I have something in common, that leads to rapport. And then rapport usually leads to a conversation, then to trust, and then to a relationship. But if I just go, it's kind of like if I go into a bank, let's say I'm with Bank of America, but I'm like, oh, go down to Chase. Hey, Chase, can I have 40 grand? Do you have an account with us? No. But I want 40 grand. Well, then beat it. Same thing in sale. We have to invest. You have to like deposit into the, and so I think for me, relationships are like starting with questions, actively listening. But why I one of the chapters of the book, I talked about documentation. Most sellers and recruiters, I don't like my CRM. I don't like my ATS. My boss makes me do it. Well, Kforce tracked when I was there. It actually might have been even a Hall Kenyon. They tracked usage of our CRM. So not only I was number one in GP revenue, I was also number one usage in CRM, because it made me look smarter. There's no way you're going to remember everything. We're human. We're flawed. The technology. So when I would call, hey, Vince, I remember you told me about Tri-Cities. Tell me how they're going. And are you still riding motorcycles? Like, am I remembering things he said, taking notes, and then use what you told me to ask questions next time we talk? So I think those are the things that I assumed everybody did. And then now as an entrepreneur doing the work I'm doing now that I did not mean to do it, this found me. I'm realizing it's more uncommon than common. And so can I tell the story of how the title came to me? So have you seen Christmas Vacation?
Yeah.
When Griswold went out into the forest, he saw his tree. That's kind of like what happened. So I used to travel quite a bit, and I was going to Dallas to work with a customer and kind of help, because a lot of the relationships were moving from Seattle to Dallas for this account, and was training a team. And this is like 8 years before I end up with leave and to go write the book. But I remember going down there to this younger team, and they were hungry, or they wanted to, like, I was the older brother. They wanted to make Big Brother proud because they didn't have a lot of experience. And so I just sent the message to him one day. I said, hey guys, my expectation is when we get a deal, you're going to win it. And you compete on every job, every project, you're going to win every deal, but you're not. More importantly, it's important that we win people. Like whether we win a deal or we lose a deal, we have to win people. I go, tell me what we mean by that. And I got like stared, like, I don't know. Yeah, they were intimidated or they just didn't know what to say. So I said, think about this. Imagine we lose a staffing deal to, ABC company. And imagine if I called, I have two choices. A, I lose and I put my tail between my legs and I'm frustrated. Or B, I call the client and I say, hey, imagine you're the client. I'd say, hey, Vince, it's Casey with ABC company. I wanted to follow up to you to say thank you for the opportunity to compete. I'm bummed that me and my team weren't able to find you the right talent, but I just wanted to follow up to make sure that the resources you hired from ABC company are meeting your needs and they're everything that you're supposed to. They're doing a great job. And so three things would happen when I did that. One, they'd say, Casey, yeah, they're great. Thanks for following up. Appreciate you. All right, take it easy. Or they'd say, you know what, Casey, I haven't even heard from the company that gave us these resources. But thank you for following up. I'm gonna actually give them a call. Or three, they'd say, you know what, Casey, ironic timing. The people that we hired are not doing good. Are your people still available? I want to give them a chance. So just by doing that, I picked up so much low-hanging fruit. And so when I said this to a team, I go, so how can we win a deal? Win a person, we lose a deal. I go, this is how we have to win the relationship, not always the deal. And now I said, that's it. And it was like, that was my Griswold tree moment in the forest. I was like, that's the name of the book. And so I just held on to that and I started saying it internally. And then that started kind of gaining traction. And then, once I left, I took a month off to get my mind right. And then for 4 months, I wrote every day from 9 to 11:30 and banged it out.
Oh my gosh. There's one thing I want to add to what you just said, because I think it's profound. I used to do what you did. I would call. Whether I won or lost, it didn't make any difference. It wasn't about the deal, but I always preface my presentations with I'm not here to tell you to hire somebody. I'm here to bring you the top talent I can find. What that would allow me to do is after the deal, whether I placed the person or didn't place the person, I would always ask the hiring authority, not human resources, the hiring authority, what could I have done better?
Love it.
Because if I lost the deal, what was I missing? What didn't I ask you that I should have asked you at the beginning? And if I got the deal, I want to grow from where I'm at. What could I do better? So it's right in line with what you're talking about, because it is about building relationships. And I don't care what hiring authority is out there. You humble yourself. You come to them with questions trying to better yourself. Good hiring authority is going to help you out.
They will love it. Most people love talking about themselves. I mean, if I asked you questions about motorcycles, we'd be here for 2 weeks, Vince. I mean, you have all, joking, but one other thing that I learned late in my career that I teach now that I wish I would have learned earlier is a framework called TED, which stands for Tell Me, Explain, Describe. So sounds really simple. It's really hard to do. It took me about a year to get good at asking. I call them TED-based questions. But what I do is I put a number in the question to get really good data. So if I said, for maybe moms and dads, this might resonate. Hey, Johnny, how was school? Good. Well, what'd you do? Nothing. Those are bad questions, mom and dad, just like if we go ask those questions in sales. But if I said, hey, Johnny, tell me one thing that made you smile at school and one thing that frustrated you. One thing that's made me happy was ice cream. Well, great. Well, tell me why. There's a second level question. Well, one thing that frustrated me was Susie was mean to me. Tell me what she did. Second level question. So when you put a number in the question, so back to your example, you could say, tell me what's one thing I could have done differently or better to make your experience better. Or tell me 2 things you love our company is doing for you and tell me 2 things we can change. And once that becomes a habit and just the clients realize that you're going to ask this, and they might not say, oh, you guys are great. I go, no one's perfect. And I think now is the time, if you're sitting in a company where your business might be a little bit slower, now is the time to double down on that curiosity because if you don't, your competitors will. And then I love asking the clients, people a question, tell me how it feels if your competitors are more curious and they just took your clients. So don't let people steal your milk money at recess.
I love that. What is your secret sauce? What is something about you, whether it's in a presentation or working with a client, what is it about you that you sincerely want them to hear?
Well, I was going to answer it in third person, but since you I'll tell you what my clients will tell me. But if there's one thing I would want to say, I would want them to hear that, wow, that was really refreshing. That's a guy that had over 300 contractors on billing. I've never met anybody with 300 contractors on billing, but he was really humble and he still wanted to get better. And and I have 50 people on billing, and I was kind of mean to my back office person last week, and I was kind of short with my receptionist this week, front desk person. And man, I don't know when's the last time I've gone out of my way to buy my recruiting team coffee. Maybe I can do those things. So it's like I almost want them to kind of have a self punch in the face to make them realize that, listen, when I left Kforce, I was the number one seller in the history of the company. 10 straight years, number one. And then I'll say, who cares? Because Vince, and I'll tell this to people when I speak, when you dial 911, my phone does not ring. So I'm not that important. And if you ask my kids, hey, what does your dad do? He does like a podcast, and then he wrote a book, and I think he helps businesses. I mean, they don't give to, you know what? My male ego says, oh, I'm the. So I've learned to just keep that ego checked. So I would hope that people realize that, man, here's a great example of someone that he's flawed just like me, but he's working hard to do something about it, and he's not complacent. And now I'm not perfect about it. There was times where I kind of got like, well, what am I going to do next? But then when you just start surrounding yourself with like-minded people, you start asking more questions, you start trying to find others to like learn from. Like, I didn't know how to start a podcast. I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't know how to get into speaking and coaching, but I just asked questions. I didn't know how to build a website that would describe me. I didn't know. But learning is fun, and then when you can embrace it, it makes it just a lot more refreshing way to live life.
Well, you grew up, especially in sports, you grew up knowing that you couldn't be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection in sports. And you're going to fall down. You're going to have hiccups. What I think people lose sight of is they dwell so much on what caused them to fall down rather than how can I avoid that the next time? Because the next time is with the next call. And you've been gifted with that opportunity in front of you. And I further say, you have this unique charisma about you that it really isn't about the no, because you sound like you thrive on the no, because it allows you to ask more questions.
Well, yes, but it also allows me to win my time back. So many sellers or recruiters will convince themselves, oh, they have big hiring needs. How do you know? Well, I saw it on their website, and they're just waiting for the perfect candidate. Did you ask them? Have you talked to them? No, but I guarantee you they'll hire from me. No, they won't. You're lying to yourself. So, like, I love what you said, Vince. But what I like to do is, if someone tells me, hey, we're not looking to hire people, great. Tell me why. Like, get curious. Because we have a fantastic team. We don't need to hire. Awesome. Tell me, if you were to change one thing about your staff, would it be anything? Well, maybe our project manager is great. Tell me what you change. I could role play this for weeks.
Exactly.
But let's say, for example, they say, hey, Casey, we are revenue's down 20%. We just had a reduction in staff, and we're not hiring for 6 months. Great. Awesome. Tell me, would it make sense for me to follow up in 3 months in case things change? Boom. Okay. Even if their website says something, I'm going to go into my CRM. Hey, Vince, it's been 3 months since we last spoke, but I wanted to follow up per your advice from when we last spoke. I'm calling with my fingers crossed. Is business back up? Are you guys still down 20%? Like, I'm taking whatever that person or you told me, putting it in my CRM, and then using it to ask a question the next time I talk. So yeah, I definitely use, when I hear no, I ask questions, but I also, I'm looking to qualify deals out as quickly as I can to not waste time. And every customer is not the perfect customer. And the sooner that you can come to grips with that and just embody that mindset, it is really refreshing. And I don't want to try to convince anybody to buy from me. I want them to convince themselves that they should buy from me. And that's, I think, what elite sellers do, because they're great storytellers and they ask great questions.
Well, and it all starts with getting two people to talk.
Yeah.
Because talk causes chemistry or it doesn't. If it doesn't,
that's right.
It's not going. If it does, they're going to do deeper engagement to find out if they're made for each other. So you're consulting and coaching. What you talk a lot about your recruiting background and so forth. Is that where you focus your consulting?
That's the low-hanging fruit. That definitely. I do fractional sales leadership for a couple companies. I just started a bigger project with a large staffing company where I'm working with like 12 leaders on sales best practices, sales hygiene. But what blew me away is I actually have been hired by 3 wealth management firms. I don't know anything about wealth management. I mean, I know how to balance a checkbook, but the wealth management space, one of my former clients, they had an acronym that didn't make a lot of sense. It made sense to them, but I said, have you guys ever asked your customer what that means? And they're like, well, no. I go, might be something to think about. And I was their customer. And so I told them that this acronym, I says, please don't call it that report anymore, because that doesn't make sense. Like, well, what should we call it? I go, I want you to call it the F off report. The F off report, Casey? I go, yeah. What does that mean? I go, it means that when I have enough money, I can say F off world, I'm out. I'm done. But meet me where I'm at. So it's like, even like slowing down another industry to like build relationship skills. So I've done work in real estate, the golf industry, insurance, athletics, education, staffing and consulting. And the hard part, I'd say this is, I don't think, because you can't say who's your market. Well, everybody. But I kind of feel like my book is for everybody. And I'll remind people, as an author, you do not make money on a book, at least unless you're like Stephen King. But I don't. You make like $3 a copy for a pack of gum. But when the message gets out, it turns into wisdom. That's where I feel like I thrive. But the 6 things I wrote about are: be nice, bring energy, set expectations, either positive or negative, be a great listener, understand the difference between listening and hearing, always document, use your CRM, check your ego, practice, bring your authentic self to work, and have patience for people and persevere through tough times. And so what leader in any industry doesn't want those skills? I mean, I could see it at the doctor's office when you go arrive. Hey, Casey, how the kids? Hey, doctor, this person's going to be a little bit late today. Great, setting my expectations. But so I think, I don't know, long-winded answer. Yes, mainly staffing and consulting, but I have also worked in other industries too, which has been fun.
So, last question. Clearly, you put a lot of time and effort into building your practice. What do you do to let go?
What do you mean?
All day. I mean, you're working hard to build your practice. On the phone, talking, going and speaking, travel, whatever be the case. You're out there every day giving of yourself. At some point, you've got to do something for you. What's your escape from the business debt?
I love golfing. I love watching my daughter play basketball. I love watching my son. I love playing golf with my son, watching him. I love traveling with my wife. I think, but letting go requires a little bit of you can't do everything. And so the power of saying no is a powerful thing to do. I like to read. I like taking walks with my dog. That's fun. When I think of not only let go, you can't be everything to everybody, whether it's at home or at work or your kids. You have to set expectations and boundaries and have agreements to these expectations. So I remember when my son, who's 19 now, and he was 1.5-ish, I was just kind of in my climb, and I was just my first couple of years, I achieved that number one status, and I was, driving revenue. Yeah, we love Casey. This is great. Life's awesome. But I was miserable mentally because I was getting home, Vince, at like 6:50. My son would go to bed at 7. And I was like, this is not, it's not worth it. Yeah, I'm making great money, and yeah, life's great. But I'm not fulfilled as a father. And I feel like I'm letting my wife down as a husband because I'm not there. And I'm trying to figure out a way, is there an option for both? And so instead of just, letting negative self-talk tell me no, I decided to be vulnerable and use my curiosity and ask for help with my boss. So shout out to Angela Ronica. If she's listening, I remember going to Ange when my kids were young, and I said, man, I'm miserable. She's like, what's going on? Like, I'm getting 10 minutes a night with my son. And she's like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? I said, I don't know. I need your help. I'm asking for help. Is there another thing? Is there some way we can think about? She's like, why don't you leave it? She goes, how long is your commute? I go, an hour. She goes, why don't you leave at 4? I go, and this isn't a bank. We're in recruiting. We have to be on the phone. She's like, do you not trust us? I go, what do you mean? I go, if one of us had to talk to one of your clients, would you trust us? I go, 100%. Leave at 4. If it's important, we'll call you on the way home. And like that alone changed the trajectory of my career, because I'd get home at 5, and unless it was like urgent, like we're going to go out of business call, which never happened, I wasn't available from 5 to 7. And that was time to be with the kids and my wife and have dinner. But then from 7:45 until 9, I would get online and clean up email. I'd follow up. I'd get my documentation done. I'd set my plan for the next day. Hey, okay, yep, boom, here's what I'm thinking about. So when I did that, I was able to let go a lot of the stress and the anxiety, because I was like making sure I was the best dad I could be, and also be the best leader and salesperson I could be. And it allowed me to be the best. And then I was just a better overall person, because, I either let these negative thoughts derail me or I attack them head on and ask for help. So, I always like sharing that story, because sometimes when I talk to a lot of companies, they're like, oh, I'm so stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I have 20 people on billing. I'm like, well, I had 300, and how was I not stressed? Because of these things.
Don't kid yourself. You were stressed?
Stress at the end, but I was less stressed than most because of having a clear mind, and I relied on the team, and I was able to not just get so wound up in the now of it.
Yeah, the more successful you are, you have as much stress as anybody. And I'm sorry, I'm saying this from the standpoint of different experiences I've had in my life. Okay, no matter what you're doing, you're going to have as much stress being super successful as you are of not being successful. We think it's different, but when you're successful, you're organized, you're planned, you're disciplined. When you're unsuccessful, you're not. So we hear this more, the negative more, than we do the positive. And you answered my question emphatically good, and that was my escape, or my let go, is my commitment to my family.
Yeah, well said.
I want to thank you, Casey, so very much for spending the time. Your passion is an inspiration. Don't ever lose that, because you're just a real person that believes from your heart. Your title tells it. It's really about talking from your heart and talking real to people about them, because it isn't about you. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time.
It's been an honor to spend time with you today, Vince.